So I know I've got a lot of clients that struggle to get in the right position when they're doing some of the myofascial release exercises with the hard ball on the floor. This can be a bit of a problem because obviously the idea is to relieve tension, not put it on. So when you're in real pain, and particularly when you're doing stuff like your ITB, for example, you can be quite tense while doing it, which is going to kind of defeat the object. I'm trying to relieve tension in these areas. I thought I'd do a little video about using the Theracane here. So this Theracane can help you get into some more comfortable positions to do these areas, and also give you a bit more control over what's going on. It won't be quite as effective as using the ball, but at least it'll get you started on these areas, which can be a bit daunting to hit if the ball is your only option, particularly on that ITB. So here's a few exercises that you can do. I'm doing it at home just to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to be just, all you need really is a chair, one of these, and a space with a mat, and that's all you need. So some nice easy exercises with the Theracane. We'll start with the gluteus medius release. So the gluteus medius sits kind of here in the round the back of your back and butt. So it's just at the top of your butt here and goes right across here and down, kind of behind the bones here in the hip. So just place the Theracane in there, and then we're just going to hit the wall like that. Lean into the wall, and then you just grab kind of the handles like that and lean into the Theracane. So that would be like 2 minutes on each side there. It's difficult to move this around in the same way as the ball, but you can just take it off, place it in a different area, and then lean into it and hold it. And you can get quite a good release out of that. It's quite targeted, can be quite harsh, and obviously as harsh as you make it. So again, move around, and you may need to get kind of more front on, and then you can go more side on, and you're just pushing that into the wall like that. So you're using the leverage here on the end of the Theracane to push into the wall. So that's the gluteus medius release. So 2 minutes each side. So I'll briefly show you on the other side. Again, find it, that position just around the corner. That's pretty much where it is. So if that's exactly side on, it's just behind, it starts off just behind, goes down a little, and then it goes also a little bit towards your butt crack there. So placing yourself in, putting your feet a little way away from the wall so you can lean into it a little bit, and then you just grab the handles and push it in. And that's it might be a little bit easier for some of you rather than laying on the ground and doing it. So the purpose of this video is not only to introduce the exercises with the Theracane, but just to show you ways that you can release areas of your body without getting in those awkward positions on the floor like you see in some of my MFR series videos. And sometimes you can just use yourself to do the massage. You don't need any instruments. So a good example here would be the quads and the hip flexors here at the front. So you can do this yourself, and all you do is just lean on your elbow like that. So you've got your elbow, stick it in to a bit of a sore area, and then you just lean in on it like that. And that's all you need to do. You can't go as high up, maybe about that's as high as you can go up, so you can't get right up at the top of the hip flexor there with this one, but you can get quite an effective release by just using your elbow here and leaning on it. And so that's quite an effective one right there. That's got right in the muscle, and that's quite painful. And you just lean on that, and obviously this is a pretty comfortable position. Most people could do it, and that's how you would do the front of your leg here. And the one in the MFR series video is laying on the ground with the ball on top of that, which some people can find a little bit uncomfortable. So all you do is just lean on your leg with your elbow like that. You can even pop your chin on it just to relax, and then just find a new spot. And again, about 2 minutes of this on each side. You can spend longer on it if you like. And again, you're just looking for that kind of bit of pain, and hoping it subsides. Maybe a bit of shaking, maybe a bit of tenseness and then relaxation, some deferred pain. And then obviously you can go the other side, this time with the left. and you can work all the way around the front of the leg there, and that's quite an effective release actually. Again, not quite as good as the ball, but it does work. Okay, the ITB. This is one of the most hated myofascial release areas. So you can do it slightly in front, put the front part of your leg on the side there, and then slightly behind. And so I've got some videos about how to do that on the mat. You can also do that up against the wall, but it doesn't tend to be quite so effective. There is a way that you can do it sitting down with the Theracane as well. So if you just sit up nice and straight in your chair, you pop the Theracane on either side of your leg there, and you can get the front of the ITB on this, and all you do is just push your legs out into the Theracane like that. So obviously they're narrow now, and I'm pushing my legs out, and the more I push them out, the more I'm going to bite there into the ITB. So that's great. So obviously we can't really release the ITB itself, it's too tight a band of fascia, but we're releasing the muscles attached to it, and so that's getting it quite nicely. And again, you just relax, move it down a little, and then push out again like that, and that will get certainly the front part of your ITB quite well. And then relax, push it down, and this has the advantage of you can do both legs at the same time with this one. So yeah, you can just spend 2 minutes rather than 4 minutes, so it saves, it's a bit of a labour saving device, this Theracane, and then you can work that all the way down. You might have to just move the angle a little bit from time to time and just play around with it so that you're finding those slightly tender areas. Again, it's not quite as effective as having the ball there, but it's certainly better than nothing, and it's a good way to get you started into the ITB, because I think a lot of people find this one maybe the hardest to get themselves in position with on the ground, because it's so painful on the ball that it's difficult to not be tense, and kind of part of what you've got to do with these MFR exercises is be relaxed when you do them. So it takes quite an effort not to be too tense when you're doing that one on the ground, and this one can kind of get you going into massaging that ITB. So that would be the anterior 45, so the anterior part of the ITB. Okay, so we managed to do the anterior ITB on the chair by just moving your legs out of it like that, and I said you couldn't really get round the back with that one. There is a way of hitting round the back, and it's similar to that gluteus medius release that we did in the beginning, so sticking it in this area here and then using the wall to create the leverage, and the end of the stick here to create the leverage to get into that muscle. And you can do a similar thing with the posterior part of the ITB release. So this is going just behind, so if your ITB is running right down the side here, you're just going to go just behind that and tuck in behind. So let's say you start up quite near the hip, right up here, and you stick it in like that, pop it against the wall, and then you're just leaning into the wall, hands on each side like that, and then you can get in that quite nicely. Again, you just have to release it, put it down a little bit lower, and again lever it into just behind in that area. Again, I'll put the diagram up so I can show you that. And so just working all the way down, just behind, kind of behind that ITB area, right on the side of your leg. And this, although it can be a little bit painful, you're in full control over this, so you can be more relaxed while you're doing it, rather than the ones laying on the ground with the ball stuck in there and all your weight on it. It can make you a bit tense, and that's what I want to avoid. So that one is the posterior ITB release. Okay, the next one is the glutes. Again, you can do this one sitting down, which might be a lot easier for some people. So pop one leg up on your foot there, and then get the Theracane hooked round into the glute, and then just kind of lean on one side like that, and that gets it pretty well. So that's pretty painful at the moment, So again, you can't move it around in quite the same way as the ball. You can move it a little bit like that, but you may have to reposition it into a different area and then move it around a little bit from there. You can get the butt that way. So your gluteus maximus in here and the piriformis buried down a little bit deeper. Like that. Again, it's not ideal. It's obviously a bit easier to do with the ball on the ground, but you certainly can get in quite deep with the Theracane. It takes a bit of practice to get it really effective, but that's in quite nicely now. I can certainly feel that. I can feel some definite referred pain going down the leg, and this actually can be quite targeted with the small nodule here on the edge. So I'll try it the other side. So I'll pop the leg up, hook it round, and then you just kind of sit on it like that. Okay, and then, yeah, as usual, about 2 minutes each side, and that's quite an effective release for your glutes as well, and obviously pretty comfortable, easy position for most people to get into. Okay, a really useful one to do with the Theracane. In fact, it's the only real way you can do it, is the inside of the calf here, the medial calf, so on this part. Now, this is a really tricky area for me because I've got quite bad varicose veins. I've inherited them from my parents, so this is not an area that I do very often, but I recommend that you do this fairly often because it's quite a good area to get stuck into. So I'll show you on my leg that isn't quite so bad for varicose veins, but yeah, if you've got varicose veins, you just got to kind of avoid it really. So we're gonna hold it a bit like a gun and stick it in there, just inside the shin. So you've got your shin bone around about here, and so we're going to work just inside the shin bone, and then also kind of out towards the kind of mid part of the calf. So this kind of region, so starting here, working kind of down, zigzagging down right the way towards the ankle there in the soft tissue. But like I said, this is not really an area that I can show you very well on, so I'm not really going to put much force on here, but it's going to look a bit like that. And so you just lean in, release it. It's a really good area to release this one. I get a lot of tension builds up here, so it might be a bit painful, but I can't release it, so it's a bit of a nuisance for me. So again, I'm travelling pretty quickly down here, but this is how it would look as you're travelling all the way down. It can be quite good if you put some oil at the bottom of this one, so you can kind of slip down a little bit easier, but it's fine without. And so you go all the way down there, right near the ankle there. As long as you're in the soft tissue, it's absolutely fine. Again, avoid if you've got the varicose veins. But yeah, it might be quite a tender area, this one. Alright, and you can do that sitting down as well on the sofa or something, as long as you can put your foot up like that. You can find your own way of doing that one. Okay, so there are a few areas you can't really get with this Theracane, like the TFL at the front there. It's a very difficult area to get with the Theracane, but there are also areas that you don't really need to get. One of them would be, for example, the calf. You can just do that sitting down on the floor, and then you stick the ball underneath. Again, your plantar fascia in the foot, it's pretty easy just to stand on the ball, and that's no problem at all. So I'm not going to do all of the areas of the body with this, just the ones that you can do with the Theracane, and will certainly help if that's all you can do. If you only can do the comfortable ones, or the ones that you can get in a comfortable position with, it's certainly better than nothing. So the next one we're going to do is a hip flexor, or a couple of hip flexors, which is the iliacus here and the psoas. The iliacus will be easier to hit, and the psoas is a bit deeper, so that's going to be much harder. But all you do is lay down, and then what you're looking for here is you start kind of at the top of the hip here, and you'll feel like the bones are leading down towards your groin like that on an angle going down, and that's all you're going to do. Is you're going to start at the top of the hip, just inside the bone, and you can have your feet up like that, and then you just push in at about a 45-degree angle, and that's got it again. That's got it really nicely. This is actually one of the better releases. You can create quite a lot of force using this Theracane. So just pop that in, and that's really releasing nicely. Again, about a couple of minutes for this, and then you just slowly follow that down. And you just hold it in position and just lay back and relax. It's a nice easy one. You don't have to get yourself in any funny position for this one. And then you just move it down a little more. It's a bit of a different feeling, this release, to some of the others below the waist with the hip. This hip flexor actually attaches above the waist. Again, so just put some force down. Okay, you can see how low I'm going here. Basically where your upper body runs out, that's where you want to stop. Okay, and then you just flip it around to the other side. Exactly the same thing. Just start at the top of that hip area there. You can feel the crest of the hip there. So you start just inside of that. So start just there. Nice release. Actually, that feels really good to release that. And work it down from there. Obviously I'm going a little bit quicker than you would, but again about 2 minutes each side for this one. Okay, while we're in this position, we can do the abdominals, so the top of the abdominals here. And so again, see almost exactly the same position. All you do is just flip it round. This time you go kind of in the opposite direction, and then you're forcing in just under the ribs like that. Be quite light to begin with this one until you get the right position, and watch that xiphoid process in the middle of your chest here, and obviously the ribs as well. And you're just pushing in, and you can go a little bit harder on this over time, but just get used to it first. Get used to where you're putting the Theracane, and you just follow that rib cage all the way around and down. You can get quite low here to the bottom of the ribs. Again, a nice area to release. Go the other side. Same thing. You start roughly in the middle, just next to the xiphoid process, that delicate bone in the middle of your chest, and then work your way inside the rib cage, just inside the rib cage, and follow the rib cage all the way down to the bottom rib. So I'm going a bit quicker than you would here, but this is basically the process you would go to, slightly fast forwarded, all the way down to the bottom rib. Okay, so there's a few that you can do in this laying down position. So we're going to go next. You do have some more rectus abdominis muscle actually on the top of the ribs here. So just above the bottom of the rib cage, there's a little bit of soft tissue here. There's not much, so you have to be a little bit careful and gentle with this one. So you pop that on that soft tissue there, and it's a very light bit of pressure that you put on the muscle here. So it's right on the ribs, so it'll feel quite hard, but there is a little bit of soft tissue there, and it's quite a good area to release. So you just put a bit of gentle pressure on that soft tissue just above the bottom of the ribs. And then on the other side as well, just there, and that's actually that feels pretty good. You'll be able to feel it with the Theracane. It's a bit, might have to fiddle around to find that soft tissue there because it feels very hard. But it's just there. Okay, so we've gone psoas iliacus here in this position. Then we've gone up to the abdominals, and so the top of the abdominals, and now we're going to go into the chest. So the whole chest is a bit difficult to do with this Theracane. I guess you can do it. If you pop it this way, you can do it, but it's a bit difficult to open up this chest muscle and do it. So the one I've done in my other videos, standing up, where you find a gap in the wall to do this, is just fine. It's not really a difficult position to get into anyway for most people. But this one works quite well on the pectoralis major, so this small pec muscle up here. So you've got the pec major, pec minor up here, and you can do that. So we again, same sort of position. You just pop it in there and put a little bit of pressure down on that, and that works pretty well. And so yeah, you just get it now like that. So this is the pec minor release, and this could be quite good for particularly sore shoulders. You might find that the pec minor is a little bit overactivated in people with sore shoulders, so a good one to release. So you just fiddle around with that there. That releases it quite well. Now obviously the other side. And that's the, in this position, that's the kind of all the exercises you can do on the front half of the body. You can do a couple on the back. So if you're a bit uncomfortable sticking the ball under here, you can do this with the Theracane. So for your lower back, your quadratus lumborum here, you can stick that underneath, and then you kind of leverage it up like that. It's maybe a little bit more comfortable than using the ball in this one, and probably a bit more accurate as well. Sometimes, particularly if you're using a hard ball here, the spinal processes can come into play a little bit. So with this one, you can be a little bit more deliberate about and more accurate where you place the Theracane to get a more targeted release for this one. Perhaps a little less dangerous for your spine, although the ball isn't really that dangerous. But I guess in theory you could, if you were doing it with a hard ball, not so much a tennis ball, if you're doing it with a cricket ball or a baseball or something, roll onto the spinal processes and cause some damage. But I've been doing it for a long time, and as long as you're careful it should be fine, but you may feel more comfortable with this one. So this is, I'm just working around all in that soft tissue space there, between my lower back and the bottom of my rib cage on my back, and that works quite nicely. I'm getting it right in the gap there, in that space. And so obviously I'd be doing the other side as well, but seeing as this one's facing the camera, I'll just do one side for that one. Okay, right, the rest can be done standing up or sitting down, but you've got most of those laying down. It's a pretty easy position. It's not too stressful a position to get into, so I hope those help. Okay, another difficult area for many people are releasing the lats on the ground. So this can be difficult on the ground because in many cases, especially in women, the lats are not particularly large. So with a hardish ball on the ground, you can get involved in the bone and the ribs here, but you can do it with the Theracane. You just need to pop it. So right, you should be able to feel some soft tissue starting from about here and then going up into your armpit. That's what we're just going to try and release there, the lats. So we're going to start that down there, and then we're just going to just push that in a little bit. That gets it quite nicely. And again, you do this much slower, so you find a tender spot, leave it on there for a little while, move it up a bit, like that. Again, it's probably a better release on the ground, so a lot of these are a bit compromised, these releases, but that's still going to work if you can get it in just right, and that's in a nice place now. So you're just playing around with the angle a little bit, moving it up, playing around with the angle a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, it's quite nice. Again, getting in under the armpit a little bit there. I'm moving around a lot quicker than you would be, but yeah, just finding these little tender spots in your latissimus dorsi there, and obviously I won't do the other side. Okay, so there's a few more you can do here sitting down. Theracane is really useful for kind of the back of your body, because obviously you can hook round with this. So we're going to do a few key areas with this one. So firstly, we're going to start off with the traps. So the trapezius here, running up here. This is often very tight with a lot of people. So I'll just show you this release. It's quite basic. So you just grab the Theracane like that, and then start at the base here of the trapezius, and then work all the way up along your neck, and sort of in this again, this soft tissue gap above your shoulder blade. So it starts here, and I would be quite gentle with this one to begin with. A lot of these MFR exercises, it's a good idea to be gentle first and then really ease yourself into it, because a lot of people can be very tight here, and they get kind of sore necks and sore shoulders. So it's best to be quite careful to begin with. So just pop that down. This is the kind of position. You can also just push down like that and lean your neck to one side. I kind of like it like that on this side. So you just get that in. And you can be quite forceful with this once you got used to it. And then again, you're just moving very slowly, very slightly with it. You can move a bit, and then you have to reposition, take the pressure off, reposition, and then yeah, change the angle, really get in there as much as you can. Again, you need to be a little bit careful of all the spinal processes and the bones here. When you get up towards your neck region as well, the back of the neck, obviously be careful. There's lots of bones and arteries and stuff in the neck, so take it easy at first. Don't put too much pressure on, and then just build it up over time. So again, I'm moving quite quickly here, just to show you. This is the kind of motion that you want to be doing. Okay, getting up closer to the neck now, so I have to be a little bit more careful with it. And yeah, I like doing this one. You can do this with the ball up against the wall, but it's quite an uncomfortable position. It's a little bit difficult to control it, and the ball slips off all the time, so it isn't one of my favourite ones to do with the ball, this area. So definitely use the Theracane for this one quite regularly, so we get right up towards the neck. So I'm being a little bit more careful and deliberate about placing it now, getting it in there and getting it releasing. That feels quite nice. And we're going to go right up, pretty much as far as you can, up to the neck here. And then yeah, you can move your neck around just to create some angles to get a better release. And yeah, so right up to the base of the neck. And that's great. So obviously you can do that the other side too. I'm going to show you the other side. So that would be the trapezius, and you've got kind of the outside of your scapula here. There's some soft tissue on the outside. I've focused on showing you what you can do on the inside with the ball against the wall, but you can also do the outside. It looks a bit like this. So you just pop that on the outside of your scapula, and then you just push in. And this one is a bit of a weird one. You don't need to very much force at all. And then if you just hit the right spot, you'll definitely feel it. You have to play around a little bit with this one. It's quite satisfying when you get the right spot. It often differs up to the top of your shoulder, this one, the pain. So it's a good one to get. That feels nice. Again, with these shoulder releases, don't get too caught up on them. So a lot of people have rounded shoulders and they feel tense in their neck and shoulders quite a lot, so there's a temptation to do a lot of MFR on it. It won't count for much if you're not doing a lot of MFR on your hips as well. So your hips, your ITB, the bits that are really painful, unfortunately. But unless you do those areas, particularly do those areas first and then move on to the shoulders, that's always a good idea. That's because it's those areas that are kind of the originators of the tension in your neck and shoulders. So you need to sort those bits out first. Okay, so we're still in the kind of working around on the outside of the scapula here. And again, you just spend 2 minutes in there. So I have done one with the ball up against the wall like this. So if I show you sitting down so you can still see me on the camera. So like that, where you pull your arm across. But yeah, it can be a bit awkward and it can cause the ball to flip off and go in some funny directions. So you can do this area, the rhomboids in between your shoulder blades with the Theracane as well. It's quite effective. You can't quite open up the tissues as much as you can on the wall, so I tend to prefer the ball on the wall. But if this is more comfortable for you, you can do it. So you just hold it a bit like a gun, and you get that in the back there. So you start at the top, in the space between the shoulder blade and the spine, and then you work that gap all the way down. So I'm going to start at the top. Yeah, it's quite easy to create a lot of pressure on here. You just push down on it like that. And that creates quite a nice bit of pressure. Move it around, so it's fairly close to the spine, but obviously be careful with the spinal processes. And again, I'm moving a lot quicker than I would advise you, so you move a bit slower than this. And just hitting that gap, and that's getting a nice release there. I can feel it twitching a bit. This one you can create a little bit more force by breathing nice and deeply through your chest as you do it. Okay, and just let it go all the way down to the bottom. Again, I'll just do this on one side just to show you. Okay, again, let it go down all the way to the bottom of the scapula, the shoulder blade. Okay, until we reach about there, and then you can't go any lower. Okay, so that both sides for the rhomboids. So let's show if I go front onto you now. There are lots of little areas that the Theracane is quite good for. One of them are the scalenes and sternocleidomastoids in your neck here. So when you get forward head posture, so this kind of forward head posture, these are pulling you forward into that forward head posture. So they can need releasing. Again, they're a smaller muscle group, so it's important to do the big ones first, but you might occasionally want to relieve a little bit of tension here in your neck. So you can do it. Again, you've got to be really careful. So you start at the base here, and it'll feel like almost like guitar strings down here. And that's where you want to settle on first. Again, notice here that this is super light, what I'm using here. So I'm going to do this with one finger just to show you. I don't really need very much strength to do this one. And we're just getting in there. Be nice and careful around the neck. No pulses here. If you get a funny nerve, then yeah, stay clear of that as well. But yeah, this is all, you need to be quite light and careful in this area. And you can relieve a bit of tension in the neck muscles here. Yes, mine are a little bit tight today, so I can feel that. Anyway, we're just slowly again working up. Yeah, you would do this over about 2 minutes again, not quite as fast as I'm showing you. I'm doing you in a bit fast forward here. Okay, all the way up, so just behind the ear. So that's where you would finish, kind of behind the ear here. So that would be the scalenes and the sternocleidomastoids. Staying in this area, you can actually release your jaw muscles and your occipitalis muscle up here. Your temporalis muscles. Sorry, here. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Occipitalis would be at the back. So jaw first. And you might actually find that brings some relief. Again, you don't need to put very much pressure on here. The muscles are small and they're in front of bones, so you don't need to put much pressure on to get that. These areas you might find could relieve a little bit of problem with migraines and things like that. If you're quite tight here, it's going to pull on the muscles at the front here and can give you headaches. So this could be a way of relieving it. I have to say I hardly ever release these areas. It shows a bit because they are a little bit tender doing this. So maybe I should do it a bit more, but obviously they're small areas. They're less important than those big areas, particularly around the hips. Okay, and then up here there is a small muscle there that kind of sits on the skull, and so you can give that a bit of a massage. It's actually quite pleasant. But again, you don't need to be too hard, really light on these areas. Again, I'll just show you the one side for this one as well. Okay, so the other areas are on the arm. You can do up against the wall with the ball. I can't imagine that would be too difficult to do. So that's some exercises you can do with the Theracane. Hope that was useful to you and that you can work these in if you find it really uncomfortable to do some of the ground exercises.